Operation Albury began at 3 o'clock on the afternoon of Friday, August the 13th, 1963, on the green lawns of Government House, Melbourne. There gathered a dozen men, 2 graceful cabin cruisers and their towing vehicles, and a helicopter. His Excellency Sir Owen Delacombe, Governor of Victoria, greeted crew members and wished them well. As Victorian Commodore of the Australian Coast Guard Auxiliary, he knew their aim, to navigate the Murray from above Albury to the sea, recreating the voyage of Captain George Smith in the paddle steamer Albury 108 years ago. And their mission, to interest the people of the Murray towns in boating safety, induce them to form their own volunteer flotillas to teach and practice safety in a fast-growing sport in which carelessness and ignorance can so easily mean death. The helicopter's role was to scout the river ahead and quicken interest in towns from Tallangatta, high on the Hume Weir, to Gula on Lake Alexandrian, 1,400 long miles away. To navigate, Captain Paddy Hogg, a river skipper and a living legend along all the miles of the Murray. After an overnight trip from Melbourne, the first launching is made at Tallangatta. A short stage this. Man-made obstacles like the Hume Weir wall can't be navigated. Launched again next day below Corowa, the 2 boats, their specially designed hulls lifting them high into the surface of the water for greater speed and ease of handling, complete their first stage on the river itself, to Cypress Gardens, Yarrawonga. Paddy Hogg is navigating from a Kuna, skippered by State Coast Guard Vice Commodore David Weston Smith. Deputy National Commodore Ted Madden skippers the other craft, Crusader. At Cypress Gardens, the ritual of recovering the boat from the water and reloading them onto their accompanying trailer rigs is necessary again. 100 yards away is the weir, which backs the Murray waters up to form Lake Mulwala, an obstacle Captain Smith in the Albury could not have envisaged in 1855. This is to be the last time the boats leave the water until journey's end. Still over 1,300 miles and 11 days to go. At this stage, boats and crew are still settling down, getting to know each other, and getting to know each other's faults, for such an operation teaches lessons that even the most careful planning cannot foresee. Upon how these are overcome depends the operation's success. The site for the next and last launching, selected by the local Shell agent, is ideal, and the helicopter and crew are there to watch and lend a hand if they can. All hands to the ropes as the 23 feet of Akuna, her powerful twin Mercury outboards reaching for their natural element, slide in without a hitch. One down, one to go. Now it's simply a case of the recipe as before, and then congratulations and farewells all round. All aboard and away, heading around sweeping tree-lined bends for Cobram and Tokemwal and all points west. The role of the Ansett A&A helicopter was occasionally more than trouble spotting and working as an advance party during Operation Albury. At Picnic Point, north and upstream from Echuca, she becomes a mobile refueling base. Wherever the river allowed, the boats were making 20 to 25 knots, and that meant a constant supply of fuel at carefully plotted points all along the river bank. The people from Mathara, nearest town to Picnic Point, turn out in force to see the boats come in, thirsty for fuel. Helicopter pilot Darcy Newell has made his rendezvous. With Paddy Hogg's keen eye alert for every ripple which betrays a snag or shallow water, the boats have come through right on schedule. And Paddy has met another old friend, someone who remembers him from the days not so long ago when he brought majestic paddle streamers this far upstream. Greetings over, refueling begins. Only one of 30 points where fuel depots must be clearly marked and fuel waiting. Fuel is the operation's lifeblood. There can be no mistakes. Young crew member Gerard Madden lends a hand. Each boat loads 6 or 7 drums for the next stage, 90 river miles to Echuca. Empty drums replace full ones on the river bank, and racing away from their own spray, the boats head for Echuca by nightfall. And before darkness robs the river of all its light and makes snags and floating debris impossible to see, they reach Echuca, where school children and civic officials wait to greet them. Then, when the civic welcome is over and a barrage of questions answered, it's time to eat around a campfire and to bed down on the boats. Early starts are essential, whether from Echuca or, in this case, from Barham. Each day means more than 100 miles, and strong winds and choppy river make that an ordeal of concentration and ice strain. A quick breakfast cooked on the coals at last night's fire, load the boats, and another day has begun. However early the hour, it's never too early for a farewell visit from youngsters who could name every boat which has passed along the river in their short lifetimes, from the side-wheel paddle steamers to high-powered leaping cabin cruisers. In line ahead, the boats follow each graceful curve of the Murray, noting the gradual change in scenery as the river winds north and west. From Echuca onwards, there are 3 boats in the convoy, the third skippered by Jim Fowler. People from farms, orange groves and sheep stations wave a greeting from the river bank, drawn by the snarl of the engines. At Swan Hill, there's a special treat waiting. 200 youngsters, many of them legacy children from Melbourne, have a grandstand view of the arrival from a veteran of the river, the paddle steamer Oscar W., once a wool boat on the Darling. Swan Hill is a town with a heritage of the river, and turns on a warm welcome with the mayor, Councillor Feltman, on hand with official greetings, and most of the town there to hear them. Then, in a tribute to the river, past and present, the Oscar, one of the few remaining genuine paddle steamers on the Murray, fires up and casts off. There's no difficulty arranging this. The skipper and owner of the Oscar W is Captain Paddy Hogg, Operation Albury's navigator and pilot. Years of river history span the gap between the outboards of the cruisers and the Oscar's wood-fueled boiler. But for the youngsters, there's romance in both. But a ride on one of the boats that made the Murray-Darling system one of Australia's main trade routes is something they'll be able to tell their children about. Countless river miles have churned under the Oscar's paddle since she began work in the first years of this century. The story of each mile is etched in the lined face of her old steersman. This is the life of the old Oscar W now. Pleasure trips for the youngsters, an occasional towing job as another steamer goes to its last resting place. But Paddy Hogg is determined to keep her going. She's part of the Murray's history. From Swan Hill on to Mildura and the halfway point on a warm Saturday afternoon with pleasure boats hooting a welcome and speedboats dashing past. The helicopter, a rare sight in country areas, draws crowds to the riverbank like a magnet. And Mildura's boat clubs take a keen interest in the crew's boat safety message. There's not always a crowd to greet boats or watch them pass. At lonely Lake Victoria Station, only the caretaker and his family wait. But their hospitality is unmatched. They live on a part of the Murray few people see. Broad reaches between Wentworth and Renmark, fringed by trees, but with desert beyond. Here the river is busy with wildlife, disturbed by the uncommon sound of engines. On towards Renmark, and the river's character changes again. Each bend is a little wider, and occasionally a cliff rises as thriving Renmark comes nearer. Boating on the Murray is big business and pleasure in South Australia. At Renmark, mayor and townspeople turn out in their lunch hour to chat. Paddy's legendary name draws the youngsters. He has tales enough of the river to entertain them for hours. He could spin tales of the problems of getting a 100-foot-long steamer through a narrow lock when the river's running high. With that sort of experience, guiding 3 23-foot cabin cruisers through is child's play. Now the way is wide, and the river majestic and ponderous in its long reaches. The town of Bury is on such a reach, a town synonymous throughout Australia with fruit growing. When they're not growing fruit, they're on their river. Bury could be the site for next year's World Water Ski Championships. Here the Murray is an old river. It has edged its way down through the red soil and rock, forming great cliffs which tower 200 feet out of the water and colour in the morning and evening sun. Now the end of Operation Albury is in sight. On through fruit and wine towns with magic names: Wakery, Blanchetown, Morgan, Murray Bridge, Tailem Bend. Everywhere there's warm greetings and a keen interest in the crew and their mission. The last and perhaps greatest adventure comes on the last day. With 1,300 miles gone, Lake Alexandrian, treacherous in bad weather, must be crossed. Crossed it is, and reunions made after a fortnight on the river. As smoothly as it began, Operation Albury is over. The trailers are back to the water and the boats recovered. The boats, scratched and weary, but mainly unharmed, come back to land. Operation Albury is over. It has followed in the footsteps of history, but even more importantly, it has taken its lesson of boating safety to the people of Australia's greatest waterway, the Murray River.